Good morning or afternoon, whatever time it is that you are in class on this day 2 of Mr. Haney being out. Today we're going to continue our lessons on fractions, but we're going to kind of move on from just a simple review from 3rd grade and kind of get into some 4th grade things. Today you're going to receive a worksheet that is going to give you some prompts, and you're going to use all of your fraction bars to create these, create the fractions that the prompts tell you to create. And then after you have created it, you're going to be drawing the fractions. Okay? Here's an example of something you might see. So thinking back to yesterday with our numerator, fraction bar, and denominator, we would read this as 7/8. Now, if we look at our picture, we see that our whole is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts altogether. If we took this part away, we wouldn't really have a whole, right? So we need to leave this in when we're drawing so that we know how many there are supposed to be in our whole. But we shade the ones that we have. So the whole is partitioned to 8 parts, as I said. The denominator, that's represented by this, 4, 8 altogether for the whole. 7 parts are shaded to show we have them. That's our numerator, so 7/8. Now, yesterday we would have shown this just by simply getting 7 of these pieces that say 1/8, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. Okay, and when we compare that to the whole, we see that it is not quite a whole, but it's very close. And that if we were to get the last eighth, we would have a whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But we only have 7/8. So how can you draw this? Well, there are several ways you could draw this. But I would recommend basically just copying what is on your desk. If you have put together 7/8 like this, why not just draw it like that? Start with a rectangle, and stretch it out. Only difference is we're going to actually draw a whole, and then we're going to partition it into 8 parts. So we have a whole, and I have told you, it's been several months now, but I've told you when partitioning these fractions, especially if it's an even number, the best way to start is in the middle. Okay? Because I can take 2 halves, right, to make a whole. Well, how many halves, or how many 8s make 1 half? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means another half would make 4 more 8s. So when I half this, I have 4/8 over here, and I have 4/8 over here. But then I can half those, because not only do 2 halves make a whole, but also 4/4 make a whole. And I can't find my fourths. Here they are. 2/8 equal 1/4. So then 4/8 equal 2/4. So I can split each of these halves in half, and I now have 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'm trying to get 8s, so I'm going to take these fourths and split them down the center. Now, again, these are not perfect, and yours aren't going to be perfect either, and they don't have to be perfect. That's not what this is about. We just want to get something that shows a whole that is split into 8 fairly even parts. If you went to a birthday party, and this was the cake, and there were 8 people, and you got one of these pieces, nobody's going to be upset. But if when drawing this, or when cutting a cake, if there are some pieces like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the person's like, okay, cool, yeah. If somebody gets this part and I get this part, I'm going to be upset, right? So this would not be a good example of drawing fractions. This is pretty good. So we have 8 parts total, but we only need 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because we're making 7/8. Oh yes, and that's, okay. We're making 7/8. So what you can do is just shade these in. It doesn't have to be perfect shading. I took my time on this one because I was going to use it as an example, and hopefully it's hanging on the wall right now and hasn't fallen yet. But you don't have to do anything fancy like this. Just show that they're shaded, okay? Shaded, 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 shaded. These are clearly shaded, these are not shaded. So this represents 7/8. 7 pieces are there out of the 8 that it takes to make a whole. All right, so some prompts that you might receive today might be something like this. Build a fraction using thirds. Name the fraction. Okay, so if you're going to build a fraction using thirds, we want to get our thirds. There are plenty of options of what you could do with this. You could just have 1/3. You could have 2/3. You could have 3/3. If you had more than 3/3, you could use those. But hopefully, all of your bags only have 3/3 in it. But let's say we want to do just 1/3. Okay. You could draw this maybe like this and just write 1/3. But that's not as clear of a representation as if we do a whole. And as we're doing this, it might be a good idea to keep our holes roughly the same size so that we know it's all referring to the same hole. But if I'm just representing 1/3, these you kind of have to estimate. Okay, 1/3, 1/3. So that might be a little bit big compared to these two, but it's, again, if I'm at a birthday party, I'm not going to be upset if I get any of these. To represent 1/3, I'm just going to shade the 1. And then I'm going to write 1/3 because I have 1 part out of 3 parts, 1/3. Another example you might get, or a prompt, would be build a fraction with 5 equal parts. 5 equal parts. Well, which of these is going to have 5 equal parts? There's only a couple options, but the most obvious option would be this, because if I have 5 equal parts, that's going to make a whole. Now, we could do 5/5 and make a whole and split a whole into fifths, or even, if you're thinking about this clearly enough, we could get 5 parts of any size. If I wanted to do 5/8, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, and they're all equal, right? We could do that with 6. We could do it with 10ths, 12ths. Really doesn't matter, as long as you have 5 parts and they're all equal. After you have made your fraction, you're going to want to draw a picture of it. So, again, draw a whole where we have 8, so I'm going to split it into halves and then to fourths and into eighths, and I am going to shade the ones that I'm using. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to write over to the side what fraction I've made. I have 5 of these 1/8, so I have 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, another prompt might be build a fraction where the numerator is 3. What could the denominator be? Okay, well, anything, if I want to make a numerator of 3, I might go ahead and write down my numerator. 3 over something. I've got so many options. I could do 3/3. I could do 3/8. I'm loving the eighths today. I could do 3/5. 3/10. Really, I can do 3 of anything. And that will give me a numerator of 3. I'm going to do the tenths. So I'm going to draw my rectangle over here. You can do circles. However, I would not do that today. Circles are a whole lot less, they're harder to partition than the rectangles. These help you to get some more accuracy. So I have 3/10. Now, I told you that you can split even denominators in half when drawing them. How many tenths would be on each side of these halves? Well, what's half of 10? 5 is. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 partitions to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. remember that as you're drawing, however many partitions you put, you're going to have one more than that. If I have one hole and I put one partition, I now have 2 parts. So every partition you put, remember, it's going to give you one more part than what you started with. But to do 3/10, back to what we were on, 3/10, I'm just going to shade 3 of these parts that are tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to make a whole, and I have 3 of them shaded, so 3/10. Build a fraction where the numerator is exactly half of the denominator. Okay. Well, we have halves, we have thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, eighths, tenths, and twelfths. We can pick any of these, but we want to think of what is half of the denominator. So can we do half of a third? Well, we could do half of a third, but we're not trying to actually do half of a third. We're trying to do where the denominator is half of the numerator. So we have, even I'm getting a little confused here in what I'm saying. Build a fraction where the numerator is exactly half of the denominator. Okay. To do half of 3, we would have to have 1 1/2. But that's going to be complicated with these, so we don't want to do that. With fifths, it's going to be a little bit complicated too, because we would need 2 1/2, which is half of 5. So let's think of just even numbers. 8. What is half of 8? Right, 4 is, because it takes 4 plus 4 to equal 8. So we could do 4/8, and our numerator would be half of our denominator, because we would have 4 over 8. And we draw it just like we've drawn the rest of them. Draw a hole, split it into half, split those in half, split those in half. We now have 8s, and we're going to shade 4 of them. It's important that on each of these you draw a picture of it. First you model it, then you draw your picture, and then you label it using a fraction bar. Okay, then you might just get a prompt like make 4/10. Build a model to show 4/10. So you would get your tenths, have 4 of them, put them together, and then you would draw that. You might another prompt you might get is build a fraction that is less than 1/2. Okay, so something smart to do here might be to grab 1/2 and then to build a fraction that's smaller than it. Okay, well, this 4/10 that we had here, is that smaller than 1/2? It is. So we could use that. Is 4/8 smaller than 1/2? No, it's the same size. What about 3/8 though? Or 2/8? Or 1/8? All of those would be smaller. You could use any of those. 1/5, 2/5, but not 3/5. We couldn't use that because it's more than 1/2. Or 2/5 or 1/5. Whatever you want to choose. Decide it and then build it, draw it, and label it. Good luck, be creative, and I'll see you next time.